If you love talking about cats, but your friends and family are kind of over it, this is the podcast for you. Join your hosts, Danielle Stray-Woolley and Elizabeth Calico-Gearhart on the Jersey PodCats, where everyday cat lovers share funny stories, challenging situations, and ask their questions about cats. All right, let's get right into this episode.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Jersey PodCats. We're excited to have you today. I am Danielle Woolley.
And I'm Elizabeth Gearhart, and we are the Jersey PodCats, and we're in Jersey, and we talk about cats, but we get people from all over the place.
Yes. And we like to start off with a Max update. Do we have a nice update for today? We're going to talk for a couple of minutes, Elizabeth and I, before we introduce today's guest.
Well, Max seems to be doing better. He's not 100%, but he's scratching less. I have him on 3 medications, and now it's getting sunny and a little bit warm, and he loves to go out on the deck and lay in the sun. And he's growing. He's almost a year old, so maybe he'll outgrow some of this, I'm hoping, because there are treatments for cats that you can't give to kittens, and he'll be a year and a month and a half or so. So cross your fingers.
Well, that's good. Good. I like to hear that. And for those of you who don't know, part of the reason this podcast started is because when Elizabeth and I met at the Association of Women Inventors and Entrepreneurs Conference, she was talking about cats and how she was looking at stuff for her cat Max, couldn't find anything. And then when we met and I said, I love cats too. And she said, let's do a podcast. We are now here. What we love doing is connecting cat lovers and sharing all about their cat stories and awesome things that they're doing in the world. And I know we've talked a bunch about nonprofits, and we talked a lot about rescue. And I think I've alluded to this already in a couple of updates. So I'm still working with rescue as a volunteer. I have taken a step back with doing as much, focusing on health and doing creative projects like this and focusing on my consulting work. And I like supporting all the nonprofits and helping get words out. But I got insanely burnt out from trying to do all the trapping and doing all the fostering and doing coordinating. So the reason I'm mentioning that again is it's very relevant to the special guest that we have today. Before I introduce her, Elizabeth, I know you like to look up stuff that's like cool and cat related, and you had asked me a question just before we hit record that I want you to ask again.
Okay, but one thing I want to say first is St. Patrick's Day today. So happy St. Patrick's Day.
Yes, so we're all in green, even though you're probably not going to see this till Easter or hear this.
Right. I'm part Irish, so yay. And so I have my little St. Patrick's Day kitty up here with me if you're looking at Zoom. But anyway, I asked Danielle, do you like Taylor Swift?
And I said, well, duh, yeah, of course.
And I said, well, here's a reason to love Taylor Swift. So Taylor Swift not only adopts cats that don't have homes, but she trademarks their names and she makes merchandise and sells it. So cats support themselves. I really got to figure out a way to do this with my cats, but she just trademarked her last cat's name, Benjamin Button. So it says, cute. Yeah, for use on merchandise, including clothing, phone accessories, toys, luggage, home furnishings. If you go online, you can see pictures. He is so cute. And you can see pictures of him, and you can see a picture of him with her. And it's a really beautiful picture. So anyway, congrats to you, Taylor Swift. You are an amazing person yet again.
That's cool. Yeah, I mean, aside from her music, I like the fact that she's like, yeah, I like cats. And actually very similar to the wonderful guest we have today, where she says, I don't apologize for my love of cats at all, is the wonderful Sally Williams. Welcome, Sally.
Hi, everybody.
And the reason I'm so excited about this episode is because before we even knew we needed a podcast, or before I even knew anything about what Sally does, I was I was at a networking event through the New Jersey Center for Nonprofits, through the work that I do with Tommy's Cats and a few other groups. And as soon as I said cats, there was a really wonderful woman there that said, oh, you must know about the Brody Fund. You must know who Sally is. And I was like, I do not, but it sounds like I should. And then fast forward a tiny bit, when we launched the podcast, she saw the words Jersey and cats, and she said, hello, we need to know each other. And then it took me a little while before I realized, wait a minute, you're the woman that I was told I was supposed to know. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. What a warm welcome. I love it. Yeah, it's amazing how I feel like in this cat community, we all get connected, right? Mm-hmm. Somehow we all find out about one another. So it was meant to be.
Yeah.
Yes, I also agree. I've got my green here. So
Oh, for
yeah,
St. Patty's, yes.
Yeah, for
And
those of you that can't see it, yeah.
you
I know.
describe it for those who can't see.
So this is a green heart that has whiskers in it.
That's
So
so
it's a
cute.
beautiful green pendant. Marlon had beautiful green eyes. This is a memorial piece, has his whiskers in it. We chose green for his eyes as a background, and it's a Volana Cote piece that has, that has whiskers in it. So it's beautiful, very near and dear to my heart.
I love it. Now, the first thing we're going to jump into is because you already mentioned Marlin. And I
Yeah.
know that because you have such a strong love for that kitty cat, and people always ask, who's Marlin? Because you're always talking about Marlin. And I know it's still,
So for people who can
Oh,
see,
he's a tabby.
sorry if you can't see this beautiful tabby. Yes. Yeah. Tuxedo tabby. Yep.
mhm. So, and I know one of the most common questions you get is people ask, like, tell me about Marlin. Like, why are you so passionate about talking about Marlin all the time? How did he impact your life?
Yeah. So, Marlin came into my life at a time when I had been diagnosed with a lot of autoimmune disorders. And I needed joy in my life. And I'm not a person who typically adopts kittens. And initially I really wanted to adopt a dog. I already had a couple of cats. But my husband's not so much a dog person. And I was out one day at a PetSmart and saw this beautiful kitten. And like I said, but there's something about him, that I was really drawn to him. And so we brought him home. I kind of coaxed my husband into this by saying, oh, he's so cute and you can name him. So he got the name Marlin because my husband loves to fish.
Oh,
So
cool.
Marlin, we bond. I was home a lot because I wasn't working at the time. I wasn't feeling well. And so we spent so much time together. We just had this incredible bond. And he was this typical looking cute tabby kitten who grew into this cat that had this big Buddha belly. That's how his Instagram account became Marlin the Buddha cat. Was my
Oh, that makes sense.
because he would jump up to sit next to me and he'd kind of roll back and sit like a person, and he had this big Buddha belly. And
he was body positive. He was not ashamed of that belly.
no, very proud of this belly. Both his eyes, he had two lazy eyes. Didn't know as a kitten, but one could be drifting one way, one could be drifting the other. Somebody on this page coined it the Marlin drift. And so it started as like this bond with a cat, and I decided to share a little bit of it just with silly photos with my friends, because he the perfect question mark tail, and he had this strange belly, and his front legs were kind of lower than his back legs, like we called him a low rider. There were all these quirky things about him, but put together it was like this magical cat. And unfortunately, he was diagnosed with cancer. At that point, the Brody Fund was already established because I had already had Brody with cancer. And because of my, I had a behavior business at that time for cats. I had already been through cancer with another cat. I'm very attuned to touching, feeling, knowing, everything about my
You
cat.
just
Sally,
knew something.
can I butt in and ask you something?
Yeah.
So the Brody Fund, what does that do?
So the Brody Fund does not exist anymore, but for 7 years gave grants to families that had pets diagnosed with cancer.
Oh, okay.
Named in honor of my Brody who had cancer.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, so beautiful. But you spoke earlier about how when you're doing too much, I got burned out of pet cancer.
Yeah.
Partially because of running a pet cancer fund while having a cat with cancer is a lot.
And it's just a lot of sadness too tied to that. It's a lot to go through.
And so when I got Marlin's diagnosis, I decided to use that Instagram page, to share his story, and it exploded. The followers on that page called themselves the Marlin Nation. I now have a tattoo of it looks like a superhero, like the logo, like a Batman logo, but it's got an M in it instead. We sold t-shirts to raise money for the Brody Fund. It just became this enormous thing. And what happened was, I thought I had a deep bond with my cat. I thought Marlin and I were so connected. I didn't know it was possible to have a deeper connection. when he was diagnosed with cancer, I went from being, his mama to his driver, to his nurse,
Caregiver.
to everything. And so this bond it gets so much deeper. I mean, the trust that he had in me to be giving him pills, to giving him medication, to taking him to all his appointments. And it just, you can't imagine that. And so sure, I wish he never had cancer, but in this strange way, I can't take that back, because the gift that cancer gave us was this amazing bond. And sure, it made the loss that much more devastating, but I know he's still with me. I get signs all the time. I still talk to him, and I ask the universe to send, like, I need to hear from Marlon. And if you pay attention, there are signs. And that's part of the reason why Mission Meow came about, was because somebody had said to me, you're stuck in grief. Marlon wouldn't want that for you, because Marlon's he lived every day to the fullest. He lived every day joyfully. He did not know he had cancer. That's the thing. Like, it's harder on the humans, right? We know.
Yeah.
And that's one thing too, like we've talked about with other people, we feel so guilty because we couldn't do everything for our cat, but the cats and people too that pass want us to remember the fun stuff and the good stuff. They don't want us to cry all the time about it.
And he never, if I had a moment, I usually took it away from him, because I didn't want him to feel my grief or see me crying or whatever. He didn't need that, because he just knew he was Marlon. And he just thought, oh my gosh, I thought I was the coolest cat around. Now what happened? I'm so spoiled, to see those every day, and we get to go outside all the time. And because I made a bucket list and we did all this cool stuff.
Aww.
And so he was just living his best life. That's all he knew, was that. And so he taught me so much. And I say this all the time, if we pay attention, these cats are our best teachers. And so now if I'm having a tough day, I'm like, what would Marlon do? Think about that. Well, he would just kind of brush it off, and I think so when he would have his appointments, he'd go in, and that meant, blood work, maybe an ultrasound, belly shaved, things that probably weren't super fun for him. Right. But he had this, like his carrier, Mac Daddy, and it looked like a flatbed. It wasn't like a typical like stroller. You put this giant carrier onto basically a flatbed, and
And Sally, let's go ahead and turn your camera off for a second.
Sally.
Yeah, text, they loved it because it made so much easier, because Marlon was kind of a big boy, so pushing him along was so much easier for them. So I would bring him home. That's so me. Like, I think of that, I'm like, all right, when I'm having a bad day, what's my scratcher? It's pickleball. Now I go out and scratch that itch by playing pickleball, and it's like, game on, you get it out of your system. But he taught me that. And after I closed the Brody Fund and took some time, Marlon is still in my head, like, oh, he would still want his mom to still be helping cats. What can I do? So, he made my life so much better, while he was with me, but still continues to do that.
That's wonderful. Now, can you talk a bit about Mission Meow? So, like, I obviously know what it is. But just for our listeners to know, like, what is Mission Meow all about? Because I still want to talk a little bit about like so many things. Rescuing the rescuers.
Mission Meow makes dreams come true for small feline-centric nonprofits. And what we did, after closed the Brody Fund, I just knew I wanted to get back into the nonprofit world. There's nothing like the joy of giving. There's just nothing like it. And I wanted it to be feline centric, because that's really where my heart is. And my brain was like, what's my mission? What's my mission? I'm like, oh, Mission Meow. So, and then I found the logo. I found somebody to design the logo for us, and it kind of took off from there. But I knew that after having run a nonprofit for 7 years, wanted to do things differently. Raising money can be through fundraisers, can be through, individual donors, grants, a lot of different ways, but I wanted to tap into something different. And it just came to me that businesses would be a great way to build a foundation. And I use this example a lot, that a community near us, there was a house fire. And so not only did the neighbors step in and the friends step in, but businesses came together to raise money. And I was like, oh, it's like a business crowdfunding.
Yep.
So that's what I kind of created, was this foundation of the organization where businesses sign on to be partners. They agree to be quarterly donors at a level that's comfortable for them, but still allows us to kind of pull it all together and have a bigger amount. So we take the money that we get from our business partners in that month, plus the individual donations, plus any merchandise that we sell. And
I
if
have
we
my
get
giant Mission Meow sticker. It's on my
Yeah.
feeding
Hey,
container.
Danielle, yeah, I want to ask you, Danielle, so you had a rescue, you were heavily involved in your Tommy's Cats rescue.
Yeah,
for a
that's how
while.
we did most of our funding, is
Right.
we
But
partner with
so-
local businesses.
So
Yeah.
just for the people that maybe are listening to this, what do you guys actually spend the money on? Danielle, like if
money-
you're like, so you get a grant and you have this money, do you spend it on
Mhm.
cat food? Do you spend it on medicine? Do you spend it on vet visits? Do you spend it on?
It
What do you spend it on?
varies. Yeah, it varies. So, and it's different depending on the organization and who you're serving. So she was probably just about to get to how Mission Meow is different from regular type of funding, but for Tommy specifically, we would tell them up front what we were fundraising for. So if we had,
Oh,
for
okay.
example, a cat that we had trapped that needed a tail amputation, which was not cheap. So we would do a fundraiser based around that's where the money was going for. And then we would keep
Okay.
everybody updated on the shots and the medication and the surgery and all of that.
It sounds sort of similar.
Yeah.
Okay. So yes, I
Yeah.
just think people are like, okay, well, I'm giving
That's a
them
good
this
question
money.
for those who don't know about like how the
Like,
rescues and stuff work.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like what do they need the money for? So and most of the
But there's
rescues are
some that
volunteers, right?
stipulate though that you can't use it for food. Usually the volunteers pay for a lot of the foods and the supplies, but that doesn't, mean
So
all the
with Mission
time.
Meow, we are specific to that. So,
Yep.
We have over 50 business partners now. So we are currently giving quarterly. Once we reach 150 business partners accrued, we will have 50 a month. So we'll fill each month in a quarter. So it's really not a big ask. They donate quarterly. We try to land on an average donation of $200. So if you're a smaller, newer business, don't be afraid. You can come in at less because we have bigger companies that can give more. And I say the 200 just for math purposes, because if you have 50 businesses in a month that commit and we can land at $200, we've just raised $10,000 in a month without getting an individual donation before we've sold any merchandise, given a grant. So that's a nice chunk right there. And, some business partners are going to give more. Some are going to grow with us. Like a new business might start out at 100, but in a year it might be 200, and, a little more than that, they might be more. So they can sign on at an amount, they can change it. Some businesses just cut us a check. Some give us a percentage of sales. They determine, because I can't tell a business, how to give that money, because they know their budgets better, right? So we want our business partners to be happy and feel comfortable with the level of giving. And it can change, like January.
And if I can just jump
businesses.
in for just a quick second. So to answer the second part of Elizabeth's question, I don't think we've gotten to the point yet of like why Mission Meow is different. Like who is the money going to? So
Right.
Mission Meow is not a rescue. Mission Meow
is
ahead.
a nonprofit that gives to other nonprofits. So we give to, you could be a shelter, a rescue, a foster, a TNR group. You have to be a 501c3. You have to be a registered nonprofit. And the thing is, we don't pay for food. We don't pay for veterinary bills. We do not pay for rent. And the reason why is we need these organizations to have a solid foundation, because I'm aware of other organizations that have received grants and then, a couple months later, they're closed.
They're gone.
So we need
Right.
to make sure that they have a solid foundation, but they're not the bigger organizations. Like we have some local ones that you guys know, they're huge organizations. They're very well funded. They get big grants from, say, Chewy, PetSmart, all those. The organizations we're giving to, they don't get these size grants, and they need them so much, especially coming out of lockdowns, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Like
And the example of the feral MO. right? The feral MO example about how you
Yeah,
got the
full
little.
circle Mo Farrell. So our first grant was Catesbury Park in Asbury Park, New Jersey, and we gave them $10,000 for expansion. Full circle Mo Farrell didn't need as much, but they also didn't ask for, they asked for less than what we gave them because they're Midwestern, they're very practical. And I was like, you really think about what you really want. Imagine me in a tutu and I have a wand and I can make your dreams come true. So we gave them $6,000.
I'm now picturing you in a tutu, and you would totally do it. You totally would do that.
The tutu has little cats all over it, right?
Yeah. So we gave them a grant that allowed them to purchase 30 feral cat dens and also recovery cages. Because what they do is that organization supports people that do TNR. They join Full Circle Mo Feral, they get interviewed, and then they join them. So then Full Circle provides them with everything they need to do for the trapping, and then they pay for the ear tip, the microchip, the spay neuter, the vaccinations, everything. And what they do differently is if you come across a feral mom with kittens, this is the big part, they agree to take them in and become a foster. So that's where the feral cat dens come in handy, because you have them set in a crate. Mom is feral, so you need to give her a place to hide when you need to clean the cage, handle the kittens. So mom goes into the feral cat den, you put the door down, and now you can safely, she's happy, she doesn't want to be handled. You are now safe because you don't want to be, interacting with the feral cat. And then she gets
Spayed and neutered, yeah. And then once that's all done, just to kind of jump in until her audio kicks back in. Tell you what, this is gonna look really cool on YouTube. We were talking earlier about this, how we all talk with our hands. It must be a Jersey thing.
So that she gets returned.
So I'm just going to mute her for a quick second. So what she is explaining at the moment is how it works. If you have a feral cat, you really don't want to separate the kittens from the mother so that the mother can still feed and care for their kittens until they're at an age that's appropriate to then be handed off for adoptions. Yeah, I was just filling it in because we couldn't hear you.
I'm curious. I'm really curious about that because Lily, who I got at 6 or 7 months old, had one litter of kittens and had been caught and with her kittens down in Georgia. And I got her from a pet rescue group up here in New Jersey. And she was timid, like wary of people. She will always be wary of people, but she was, what is the word that you use? She liked people enough. She was comfortable enough around people that she stayed with us. And gradually, these cats, as you all know, if you've done this, they get better and better every year that passes. They get more and more affectionate. So she's on her way. But I'm just wondering how they socialized. That's the word I was looking for. Socialized her enough when they found her with the kittens.
So, I mean, generally, when you're dealing with trap, neuter, return organizations,
they're not friendly. You're not.
Yeah, they're not. Your focus is on the kittens, because it can take a lot of time. I mean, if you're the kind of person that has the time and wants to do this, but usually in a situation like that, it's better for mom to be returned to field
because she gets stressed out and she actually will.
Yeah, and the thing is, shelters are not. They don't have the time nor the space to take on a long-term socialization process. Then you're clogging up the shelter that could be filled with more adoptable cats, and that's a big problem. So it's best if mom is not deemed suitable. And shelters and rescues, adoptable means pick up. You have to be able to pick them up. That's when you're easily adopted. So these cats are not in that position. So these feral cat dens make everything safe for everybody. Mom gets returned to field. The kittens get socialized. It's a whole win-win. But that's what they're doing. And we have a grant. We are up. April is our next grant cycle. So next week we announce our next grant recipient, and they go through the application process, and then I talk to them, we vet them, we do all the legwork. So the businesses don't have to do anything, our business partners. But then we announce and we share where the money is going, and then the fundraising month starts. So it's really exciting.
I love it. And
Because
coincidentally, I won last month, and there was
Yay.
no like string pulling or anything. She used like a randomizer, and I made a
yeah,
donation.
so we have a monthly, every month we have a raffle. Our business partners are amazing, and we rotate through and they donate. And so a minimum $10 donation automatically gets you entered into a raffle. So last month was a $50 gift certificate for 4 Mew toys, I believe, right?
Yes. Yeah.
This month is a $50 gift certificate from our friends at Volana Cote. Here's my whisker ring. Yeah. And I'm already wearing the necklace. Her jewelry is really beautiful. So it's a gift card. So you just, and then this might not air in time, but next month in April, I think I can say who it is because it's going to be Specs Eyewear. So
oh, cool. So she's going to be on as well. So yeah, Christy's going to be a guest.
Nice.
Yeah, you guys will love Christy.
Oh my gosh. Did you see that behind Danielle?
That was Loki.
A cat just like dropped from the ceiling.
So he must have been signaling me and I wasn't paying attention. He usually will like tell me he wants to drop and I'll catch him. Or if he wants to go up, he'll just start kicking his foot in my face. For those on YouTube, you have to go back and watch.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to say about Sally, well, before we started was she's showing us this beautiful jewelry, and it's basically a stone, and they've taken cat whiskers and put them in a really cool geographical design on top of the stone and then sealed it all up. So you have this cat jewelry with whiskers. And Sally said, yeah, I have a bag of whiskers here. And I'm like, I have never in my life met anybody who has a bag of whiskers.
And here's the thing. Most people that I know that collect fallen whiskers,
don't go plucking.
No,
don't go
never,
plucking,
ever,
please.
ever. So most people who do this, do it in a prettier way. A lot of people have beautiful glass jars and you put them in a glass jar and it looks stunning. I have 4 cats and
she's gone the practical route.
Yes. Yeah. So I have a baggie. This is the general population one. And then, yes, I have one that says Butch on it that has a few. This is my feral kitty out front when I find one on the doormat. And then these are the tribute ones that I had from Marlin. So, and I think there's another bag in the drawer too. So I have multiple bags, and the jewelry's beautiful, stunning. And once you think, like everyone's like, I never see whiskers. Put it in
now you're gonna see
just
them.
say it.
Now you're
just
gonna see them.
And look, it's in the cat beds. It's right in front of the litter box. Like it's always specific places. Like if you start thinking about the blanket, like the kitty blanket where your cat sleeps, or the same spot where your cat sleeps every day in the cat tree, just start looking in there. That's where the whiskers are.
Yeah.
And it's so cool because then that's like hitting the jackpot. That's the pot of gold on St. Patrick's Day, is finding the black whiskers.
There you go. My cats all have multicolored whiskers. I think that's what you're about to say.
Oh my God, that would make a beautiful piece.
I was actually going to say Checkers used to pull her claws off. Like she would bite her claws off. She'd trim her nails and I'd find a little claw.
And you can so Jen works with whiskers, ashes, fur, and different, like horse fur, doesn't matter, whatever the fur. I've seen her do stuff for people who had lizards. Claws, teeth. Can make really, really cool.
Now, so people who are listening and cringing right now, like it's no different than when people use like ashes of their loved ones and make jewelry out of that. Think of it that way. It's a way to honor.
No, I mean, I showed you a piece earlier. One side has the ashes and the other side has the, and just so for the people who are watching, so you can see how beautiful, those are ashes. It ends up looking like, when you're looking up at the stars at night in the sky, that's what it looks like. It's really, really beautiful. It's nothing. And, I don't know, for me, it makes you feel closer. These are, I loved Finnegan and Marlin. I still love them. And so they're always with me when I feel like it, so like today, it felt good to have Marlin with me today.
Yeah. Now we are talking about a lot of things. And I still would love to share with everybody about some other amazing work that you're doing with, the support of some other really cool individuals.
Thanks
for rescuing the rescuers, because I know that's very, very special to you. And like I said, it was timely for me when I saw it as well.
So it really was born out of Mission Meow, because when I was doing research, I was talking to a lot of people that work in rescues, nonprofits, et cetera. And we were having conversations about other things, but then we just end up chit-chatting. And the common theme in talking to people was burnout, compassion fatigue, stress, anxiety of being in the rescue world. And then we had our launch event at Catsbury Park, and I met two amazing people, Bob Lynch and Dana Hoffman, who do TNR out in the Philly area. And we started talking, and they were sharing their stories. And I just thought, oh my gosh. And then fast forward a little bit more, and we did what was called a Meowathon on Instagram when we,
Oh,
in our launch,
cute.
during our launch month. And I talked to Michelle Hoffman of Milo's Sanctuary, and talked to Sterling Davis, aka the Trap King. And I met both of them before, but was crazy was during these interviews, these topics came up again. And I thought, wow, this is, and I'm hearing this all the time. So then I just started reaching out to people and asking, where do you go? Who do you talk to? And the common answer, very rarely was it, I have a therapist. Not everybody has a therapist. Not everybody can afford therapy, it was, I talk to family, I talk to friends. A lot of times I say things they don't understand, or they don't really want to hear it, and it's no disrespect, but if you're not an animal lover, you might not understand, what it means in a shelter, because you deal with euthanasia. Sometimes you just deal with sudden death. When you're dealing with TNR, it's a challenge. I mean, there's
Dealing with people that, don't want to cooperate, and then you're trying to help,
Yes.
and then they treat you like garbage
There's
sometimes. There's
people
just so many
and
scenarios.
there's the animals. There's challenges in all the areas.
I'm sure too,
so-
it's really tough for you guys, because I haven't done it because I would want to take every cat home, but it's just an endless stream, right? Like it never ends.
Yeah. And, these stories are all unique, because some of them are coming from the TNR perspective. Some of them are coming from the sheltering perspective. Some of them are fosters. My story was I burned out in a nonprofit. I never knew that was possible. When it was happening to me, I didn't know it was burnout, because nonprofit burnout, but it was pet cancer. So we all had these stories. So I just reached out to a group of people, pitched this idea. Sterling came up with the idea for the name of Rescuing the Rescuers. A bunch of us got together and had a thought for a logo. And then a woman who's a business partner, her partner created that logo. We tweaked it a tiny bit. And we thought, okay, we need to get we need administrators on the page, we need counselors on the page, and then we'll work on getting contributors. So it's not just a place to come and we really want to help. We want to dig deeper. So we launched in January thinking, all right, this will grow organically and at a nice pace. And maybe the first week we'll have 50 people. I think at the end of the month, we had 1,500.
Wow.
Congratulations. And now we have it's March now. There's well over 2,000 people on the page. We now have 6 counselors on the page. And so what we really do is the daily stuff that's happening, it's peer support, which is hugely important, to be seen, heard, and validated by your peers. They are going through what you are going through. And one day you might need help. The next day you might be the helper. So a lot of the posts will go up, and you'll see 30, 40, 50 comments of people just offering their love and support. And they are other people on the page. We keep our eyes out for posts that are a little heavier, maybe need a little more guidance, and then the admins will comment. And then there's a next level where people are really experiencing burnout, compassion fatigue. And then we have a system where we tag the counselors, and then the counselors step in. Now, we're just talking counseling on the page. They just offer an ear. And then if there's more that's needed, we can guide them. We have all the hotlines listed, pinned to the top of the page. The suicide hotlines, they're all 24-hour manned. Nothing that we've shared, there's always somebody available. And so we say, if you are experiencing any form of crisis, just go straight to the hotlines, don't wait. But if it's not too heavy, then we've got you, We're about to launch our first educational Zoom. We did an introduction of ourselves, but in 2 weeks, we are having what compassion fatigue and burnout look like.
I think that's important
Recognize.
because I think so many people that, like you said before, don't even know that they have it. And I know that I personally have used the page to just talk about like guilt. So when I was doing all these things and saying like, people, it's help, there's all these cool things we can do. There's so much work needed to save all these animals. And then I felt burnt out by it. I took a step back. But then I realized, it's okay to not be able to do everything. But what can I do? I could do marketing. I could share,
Yeah.
different organizations on a podcast. Like that's enough for me. But there was still that guilt of like, well, why can't I just go out and trap once a week? What's the big deal? Like I physically and emotionally can't. And you had mentioned autoimmune disease before. I have autoimmune diseases as well. And it was hard for me to just be like, my body won't physically allow me to do these things anymore.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
we talk about it all the time. It's okay to say no. It's okay to step back, and it's okay to walk away. We can't have that mentality of, if I don't do it, who will? Or the mentality of we have to save them all. That's too much pressure. That's just too much. And so Tabitha Kucera just put a post on the page. She's got a great podcast too, Tales from a Vet Tech.
Yeah.
And she's a contributor to our page. And she posted something about the glamorizing of overworking, how it's done.
Yeah.
She's like, that's just
I saw
not
Sterling
okay.
share that.
But you know what? When we talk to people, the people that are bragging in our sphere. So my husband and I work with entrepreneurs a lot, and we work with a lot of tech. And the ones that are bragging are the ones that are only working 4 hours a day because they've figured out how to delegate or automate everything else. And they're like, yeah, I have a life, and you can do that if you're smart.
Overworking is a recipe for disaster. It is a super highway to burnout. It is. And so we have to learn, how to find balance, to accept that it's okay to say no, and accept that you can't do it all. You can't, and that's okay. And
What
find
an
your
amazing
lane. Like you
message.
said, find your lane. Like I found mine. I feel so fulfilled. I was able to stay in the nonprofit world, but I'm not dealing with the sadness. And I also was doing too much. I was studying grief counseling. I wanted to be there for every single grant recipient. And I mean, it was the right way to do it. What I was doing was right. It was the only way the Brody Fund knew how to exist. But eventually I had to walk away. And that was okay too, because for 7 years we did amazing work. And the thing is that it was really scary to say goodbye to something you love and let go like that is really scary. But I will say this, if you don't make room, the other stuff has no way to come in. So for me, taking that time off, allowing myself to heal, and then imagining there was something else and kind of putting it out to the universe, like I'm thinking about this, all of a sudden it was like, and this amazing thing happened. And now Mission Meow,
the community came around you and made it happen.
Mission Meow was a dream come true. Without Mission Meow, there might not have been a Rescuing the Rescuers, because that all came along at the same, and I'm surrounded by amazing people. Like if people go to Mission Meow and look at my board, just seriously pinch me. I mean, how did I get so lucky to have such amazing people that wanted to be a part of this? Somebody like Michael Delgado, who I approached, she's an amazing behaviorist, author, publishes. She's just incredible. I approached her to be a business partner. She asked if she could join the board of Mission Meow. That's something that's like, are you kidding? And then,
so if you stick with what you love and what you know is right, and
the universe sends it to you. So I had Max, who was so sick, who's still scratching himself. And my husband said, well, maybe you should start a group. I said, I'm sure there's a Facebook group of people that can maybe help figure out what this is. And then I said, well, I'll start a podcast. He's like, yeah, right. Who are you going to do that with? And the next day I met
literally the next day met me.
Literally the next day.
And I was experiencing burnout. So when everybody was talking about their businesses and their consulting clients, I was like, I'm just here to have a nice conference. I'm here to talk to people about health, maybe say hi and talk about cats. And she's like, cats, you say?
Yes, cats. Did I hear cats?
I talk about when I use the word flow, kind of. You know, when you step into it and things just start moving forward in a way. And oftentimes we don't pay attention when we start to wobble in that, like things, and you start doing some things and then somehow you'll get pulled out. You have to recognize when that happens, because you can get right back into that. And then things just happen, and you know when it's happening because doors open for you. You get invited to be a guest on the podcast. Somebody wants to write an article about you. Somebody reaches out and said, oh, I saw you. I'd love to volunteer. These things just start happening. You're not looking for them. That's when you really know you're really in that flow, because things just happen naturally.
I love it. I love it. I love it. We are so glad that you came on today, Sally.
I'm so happy to be here. You guys are so awesome.
And, thanks for being such a positive influence in the cat community, for sure.
It's
and is there anything else that you'd love to share that you haven't touched on before we wrap up for today?
Oh my gosh. Well, we talked about Marlin. We talked about Mission Meow. We talked about rescuing the rescuers. I would just say, if you're interested in both. So if you're interested in learning more about Mission Meow, go to missionmeow.org. We're always looking for business partners. And please keep in mind, you do not have to be in the cat business. You can just have a business and you're a cat lover. We love those that come on board. We have Specs Eyewear. We have a couple realtors. Also on the website, you can volunteer. There's a window to volunteer. And of course, we love our donors. And if you're interested in joining Rescuing the Rescuers, it is specifically for people in cat rescue, TNR, nonprofit. It's just strictly cats. And it's a Facebook group, very easy. You just find Rescuing the Rescuers, join, and you're in. And it's an amazing group. So those are just how you can find out more about those. And
we also have you up on our website too, so people can find the links right from the jerseypodcats.com. Also, we've already got you up there.
Yeah. And make sure, every day, spend time with those kiddos. They're the greatest joys of our life. And I think sometimes we get really busy, but just take a few minutes every day to make sure you give them a little extra TLC, because you never want to look back and regret that you didn't spend enough time with them while they're here. It does go by really fast.
Love it. Well, thank you so much, Sally. Thank you, everybody, for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening. Let's keep the conversation going. Give this podcast a rating so other cat lovers can find it. Connect with the Jersey Podcasts on social media or visit thejerseypodcats.com and leave a message sharing a story or question about cats. Thanks again for joining us, and we'll catch you in the next episode.